Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Attract and Stand Out podcast. It is so great to have you guys here today, and I am thrilled to have my friend Simona Nicole, who is a happiness and mindset coach and the host of the Happiness Happens podcast, which I was on recently, so you'll have to go and check out that podcast. Simona is so passionate about helping women stuck in their 9-to-5 take their passion and turn it into a business that they love. She does this by helping them get from stuck to start, mastering their mindset and building their confidence and taking their ideas from concept to creation so they can step out of their own way and see results, which I absolutely love. Simona, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. It's funny that, you and I were just talking right before this about, different things. And as you're reading my bio, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I gave her the wrong bio. And it's pivoted since the last time I gave it to you. So we can dive into that. So some of it is still true, but some of it has changed.
Ooh,
so
perfect. So we will get the inside scoop then of your new pivot and kind of the new direction that you're taking, which I love. So let's start then with what was it about starting a business for you that really inspired you? Give us some backstory.
Okay, I love it. So, I could tell you the whole entire story, but specifically, why I started my business and why it inspired me to start my business was that I always had this feeling of more. I always had this feeling of wanting more in my life, wanting to do more, wanting to have, more connection, more purpose, and just impacting people in a different way and on a different level. And I guess when I think about why I started it really just kind of evolved naturally and just sort of came into its own, and it continues to do that. But I always felt like I was an entrepreneur. I always felt like I had, bigger gifts to share with people, and, an ability to help people on a really big scale and in a significant way. So it was just one of those things, I just started and I just kept going, and it's sort of evolved into this beautiful journey of where I'm at now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So tell us then a little bit then, you pivoted recently. It sounds like you kind of changed things up. And I think that's something that, especially during these times right now, as we're recording this interview, we're in the middle of COVID-19 and life's a little uncertain. Things are changing on a day-to-day, almost hour-by-hour basis, kind of what our world is looking like. And as we're starting to come out of this, or I think we're starting to come out of this, the world's starting to open back up a little bit more. What was it about your business that made you feel like you were ready to pivot? And what was that process like for you?
So it's a really good question. And I mean this in the most sincere way that I possibly could say this, but COVID-19 and this time to think and time to turn inwards has been the biggest blessing to my life. And I know that this is a very hard time for a lot of people. And I know that, people have been losing jobs and homes and it's on a crazy scale. But I took this situation as the time that I was needing to really dive in full force. I have had my business for about a year and have been operating my business on the side of my corporate job. And so when my corporate job laid me off due to COVID-19, I found myself with all of this time. And so I said to myself, okay, I'm going to do whatever feels the most intuitively right to me to do, first of all, which was for the first month, literally just turn inward and figure out what I wanted to happen and how I wanted my business to grow. And, how I wanted to be helping people and supporting people, especially in this time right now. And when I came out of that sort of 3 week to 1 month time of getting to know myself again, I sort of came into this realization that there was a big part of my life that I had been shutting out completely from my business, which is the fact that I've worked in communications, marketing, and PR for over 5 years, almost 7 years, and never pulled any of those specific things into my business because I was just so trying to differentiate the corporate and the business so much. So there was this misalignment between the two of them. And so what's happening now in the pivot that's been going on for the last 2 months or a month and a half or 2 months or so is bringing back in more of those pieces of communications and what I'm really focusing on right now is focusing on and connecting to your inner voice, your inner self, and then how that translates into your business, and then how that translates into your customers and your clients. So that was a huge pivot. So I still absolutely love the mindset piece. And my podcast is called Happiness Happens. So I love that, but I'm seeing this new sort of shift in that podcast is going to become its own thing. And then this whole piece of the coaching and this portion of my business will be its own thing as well. So I'm starting to see a little bit of a split that way. So I took this time because I had the opportunity to really focus in and hone in on what exactly I wanted to be doing. So that's the shift that's been happening so far.
Yeah, I love that. And I see that myself right now too, like just taking a chance to kind of step back and evaluate like my business, my life, what my relationship looks like with my family, like my kid, like, and even just like figuring out what that looks like on a day-to-day basis, because like I'm working from home, which for me was not a big change. I worked my business from home for years now, and I'm adding in this mix now where the kids are home with me and they're, we're homeschooling
24/7.
I'm splitting up my time. I was like, some days I'm like 20 minutes of my business, and then I'm like 20 minutes of homeschool, and then I'm like 20 minutes back to my business. And it's like, it's hard to like figure out what that looks like. But I have noticed that I've been taking more time to reflect, and I've been working in different ways. Like I've been working outside a ton more, and that totally lights me up. And I love that I'm not always in my office, which I love my office and it's fine. But when you're working from home and you haven't really left your house much for like, I don't know, however many weeks now, like at some point you have to get creative and like find different spaces that work for you.
Oh my God, that's so important.
I love that we're talking about this, like looking inward. Can you talk, like, will you share a little bit of what that process has looked like for you?
Oh, yes, I would love to. That process has been, okay. I have always had this spiritual side to me, always. When I was young and like was the kid, I would go to church and all these different things, but it never really resonated with me in the way that, connecting to your higher self and spirituality has. And so what a lot of it was at the beginning was shifting my, this was the biggest thing, was going from being go, go, go all the time to not. And a lot of the time when you work a lot and you value being busy and hustling and always grinding out and doing all these different things, when you value that, is not a bad thing, but you reach burnout faster and you don't get the time that it takes to like connect to yourself and, the time that, that you need to get to know yourself and what you actually want. So when all of this started, I had been meditating and, doing different things here and there for a long time, but I never really took the time to sit and like write out all of the things that were holding me back, all of the limiting beliefs that I had, actually giving myself the chance, pen to paper, to write out exactly what, I wanted my life to look like, or wanted my business to look like, or who I wanted to be helping. Because I was always so busy in my corporate job, I would just, roll with whatever would come at me all the time. But when you have this time of just, making it a point to turn inward, making it a point to make yourself a priority, and like knowing that your business doesn't sleep just because you're taking time away. I actually brought on a new client in those 3 weeks, which was crazy, because that was kind of the last place where my mind was at, was like, business outreach and doing all that kind of stuff, because I was so focused on, healing myself, and, I'm not sure exactly if this answers your question, but the process of that looks like, stepping away from social media and not being so reactive and not sitting online and scrolling through what everybody else is doing. I had to pull myself off of there because I was feeling really overwhelmed, because I saw so many people selling all of these things. I felt left behind. I felt like I wasn't doing enough. I felt like I wasn't going fast enough. And I was like, this isn't going to work. This isn't sustainable. And I can't sit in COVID inside my house and continuously compare myself to other people. So it was kind of like no other option than just stepping outside of what my reality was and like what I was used to every single day, and not feeling guilty about taking that time for myself. And by doing that allowed me to connect to myself more, but then allows you to show up and serve your clients and your community more, because you're more connected to what you want to do and how you want to do it. Right.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I love that you mentioned like stepping back a little bit and away from your business. And so many people are afraid to do that, right? Like they're like, well, if I don't keep showing up, and I'm huge on consistency. So like you have to show up consistently for your audience and be there for them and support them and give them what they need. But there's times where you just know that you're not serving your audience the way that you need to and the way that they need. And it's okay to take that step back and really like reflect for yourself of how it is you want to show up, what it is you want to do. What does that look like for yourself? And unplugging a little bit from social media, because you mentioned like when you're on social media, you're scrolling and you're seeing, and it's overwhelming, and it takes you away from your mission and your vision when you see other people doing other things, and you start to get like that, well, what I like to call like the shoulds, right? Like you start shoulding yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I should be doing what she's doing. I should be doing what this person is doing, or look at what this person has done. They've made like this whole new pivot package and they've done all these different things. And I haven't done that yet. So like you start to do that, like, woe is me.
Yeah.
Like you're the victim mindset, and it starts to spiral, and it can spiral out of control so quickly. But when you take that time just to unplug, even if it's for the weekend, like if it's for 2 days, like I don't do a great job at this, but I do try to do this. Like Friday nights when I sign off from work, like I try not to go back on social media over the weekend.
That's
some
big.
weekends I pull it off with great success, and I like don't go on all weekend, and other weekends I'm like, it's Saturday night and I'm scrolling and I'm like, why am I on here? Like there's nothing to see. But it's that time where you take a step back from watching what everybody else is doing and feeling like you should be doing what they're doing, and take the time to step into who you are and the things that you want to do, and go back to like the basics, right? Like what lights you up? What's your why for your business? What's the reason that you started all of this in the first place? And then when you come back as that person and not stuck in your head trying to be what everybody else is being, and just show up as you are, that's when you can really start to stand out. That's when you're attracting your people, and they're noticing and they're connecting, and you're being more relatable and building relationships that way.
Exactly. That's so, so, so important. I love that you said that so much, because it's like you have to, and this is what that time gave me, was that opportunity to connect back in on exactly what I wanted to do, and like take away the power that social media had over if I was worthy or good enough to have my business or not. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you're right. And connecting back into your why. And I remember doing like this exercise at the beginning of all of that reflection. And it was like, I think someone it was like asking like, what is your why? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like I was so overwhelmed and just so over consumed with everybody else's stuff that I couldn't even connect anymore back into what that why was. So that takes time. And I think a lot of the time we get really hard on ourselves if the answer doesn't come right away, but the answer will come right away in the way that it's supposed to come. It might not come tomorrow, it might not come today, but it'll come soon when you're ready to receive it. So yeah.
And it's almost like you need to put blinders on.
Yes.
And like stay in your lane, stay focused on what your vision is, and don't allow like all those distractions from everybody else to come in, because it takes you off course. And like when you get to that point where you don't know what your why is anymore, it's hard to show up. It's hard to know what you're creating, what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then you're not serving anybody at that point. Like
it's like, why am I here? Exactly. So yeah. So I guess to like sort of what you were asking me before of like this pivot and what I've sort of been diving into, because I've been able to connect, on a deeper level back to my intuition, back to all of that. It's led me to this place of like, intuitive business coaching and mindset coaching together. And yeah. And it's so funny. I know, as a side note, I can see that you just turned to like the left over there, because I think we're on video, so people will see this. But my family was just yelling down the stairs too, and they're like, "Hello!" I'm like, "Oh God."
Yeah, we're working in totally new times.
It is.
I always recorded my podcast while the kids were at school.
Oh,
Now they're home. And yeah, my 5-year-old just walked in the room and was like, Mom.
you're like, no. I know. And I think that's the thing. Like, it's also like, you just know that if you hear something in the background, it is what it is. You know what I mean? And I think that adds to like the authenticity, and that, you know, you're still working, you're still being a mom, you're still having to show up for your kids, but you're still showing up for your community in such a significant way. You know what I mean? Like, that's like the proof is right there, that it just shows that it's not easy, but there's always a way to make something work. It might not be in the exact way that you expect it's going to happen, you know, but you'll always find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It made me think of, like, people say, like, you want to have this perfect balance, like, of mom life and business life and all these things. And I've always like gone against the grain on that one. Like, there's no such thing as balance. Like, some days are more family oriented, some days are more business oriented. It's about finding that perfect harmony for you in your life, and like just kind of going with the ebbs and flows of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And like, I guess you balance it by the fact that you're just on the beam. You're on like the gymnastics balance beam, and you are doing the thing. And like, sometimes you're going to fall a little bit off, or sometimes you're going to fall off completely. Sometimes you're going to lose your balance and feel like you're a little bit like wobbly.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, like, it's about figuring out, like, still showing up and still doing the thing while you're living your life and having fun and supporting your family and homeschooling and making dinner and cleaning the house and like doing all the stuff that needs to be done.
I love that.
But doing it in a way that feels good for you, right? Like, finding that harmony for you. And I think one thing too, like, just being okay with knowing that it's not gonna go the way that we envision. Especially right now, like, everything feels like it's upside down, and you know, it's like someone's hanging you by your feet, and like the coins are falling out of your pockets, and like you're trying to figure out what the heck is happening, but we're just moving forward day by day.
Exactly. And, you know, I was just thinking of something while you're saying that. And it's like, you know, when you have your own business, your business is always an extension of who you are. And when it comes to, especially this time now, and having to pivot, for example, you know, okay, so you have people who have had to pivot, like, from selling in store to online, or you have to pivot from, you know, maybe you're pivoting from this client to another, but then there's a whole other world of pivoting that's like, you have to pivot your time from this time to this time. Now you have to pivot, like, you know, what you thought your perfect business looked like, pivoting what that looks like, and pivoting what you think, you know, success looks like to you, especially in this time right now. It's about like you taking away the being so hard on yourself. You know what I mean? We're human beings having a human experience here. And what expectations we put on the business that we have is like, it's made up by what we think it should look like. And so this is the time now, which is why, like, I mean, while I realize that this time is very, very hard for a lot of people, and there's a lot of loss and there's a lot of sadness, but we also have a lot of opportunity and a new way of connecting with people, and learning, you know, what we valued and what was important before versus what is now. You know what I mean? It's changed everything. And maybe it doesn't look like the way you always wanted or expected it to be, but it doesn't mean that, you know, it has to, I don't know. It doesn't mean that it has to look the way it always has. You know, maybe that is the subtle way of telling you that, you know, shift a little bit. I don't know. And I try not to sound insensitive when I say these things, because sometimes people can take it the wrong way. It's not my intention, but, you know, it's a choice, right? Like, we get to, especially as, like, you know, the mindset coaching that I do, the life is like this. It's always going to go like this. Even when we're not living in COVID-19 times, there's always something, you know, and it's never perfect, but we do get a choice every single day of, do I want to try and make this day the best day that I can? Yes. Is it going to be really hard because my entire family has been home for like 2 months? Yeah. Do I want space? Am I confined into this small, like, my fiance and I live in a basement apartment. Okay. And we've been living on top of each other in this basement apartment for 2 months. We've both been laid off, right? But you make it work. And actually, I'm going to miss this time of uninterrupted time together when this ends, going for a walk at 2:30 in the afternoon. You know what I mean? Like, you're never going to get that back. So maybe seeing that perspective instead of the other. I don't know how we got on this tangent, but I just clearly can't stop talking. So
no, but I love that you brought up, because, and yeah, like you said, like, there's a lot that's happening during this time that is, you know, heartbreaking. And everybody's being impacted. Somebody mentioned the other day to me that we're all in the same storm, but we're in different boats. And I think it was like a Facebook article that was going around that people were sharing. And that totally resonated because we are all in the same storm. Like all of us, the whole entire world is going through this, but every single family and every single person is in their own boat to a degree. And some of them, the boat's flipped upside down, and some they're just kind of floating and sailing through.
Yeah.
But it's important that, like, even though we're being impacted by this, we're able to still show up and find the joy in the everyday moments. And that's okay. Like, that
you're allowed.
You're still moving forward. Like, you still have, like, life still goes on. We're being impacted in so many hard ways, but at the end of the day, like, tomorrow's still going to happen. We're going to go, and I pray for all of us, like, that, like, we do have tomorrow still, and we're able to keep moving forward. And if that's our life, like, that's our legacy. Like, we have to keep putting one step forward, one foot in front of the other, and keep moving. We can't stop. Like,
I love that you said that. I literally just said the same thing on my Instagram stories the other day. One foot, it was like pretty much like exactly the same thought that you're having, like one foot in front of the other. We all have a goal, whether your goal is to get through your day, get through your homeschooling, get through your day without having a fight with your significant other. That's your goal, right? And so it's like one foot in front of the other. Or you have your business goal, like your business goals of like your clients and your sales and all of those things. Showing up for your community. How are you going to do that? How are you going to create more connection? But yeah, it really is one foot in front of the other every single time.
Yeah. And that we just have to keep moving forward no matter where we are. Just keep doing it. So wherever you are at this exact moment, like, just look for that next step. You don't have to look for the next big thing, or what, you don't have to know what it's even going to look like. Just take that one baby step forward, whether it's, the next step in your business that you need to work on, like, whatever that next thing is. Like, don't worry about, like, because I think too often, like, we think we have this like big, huge goal, right? And I just wrote a blog post about, how do you eat an elephant, and it's one bite at a time. Like, you can't eat an entire elephant in one bite. Like, it's impossible. And I don't encourage you to go eat an actual elephant, but like if you have this big rock, this big thing in front of you, like, whatever that goal is, like, you can't just go master it in one step.
Exactly.
Maybe in some cases and in some instances, like, yeah, you can, but for the most part, like, it's baby steps. Like, you have to kind of map out the breadcrumbs that are going to get you there so that you can go in and, like, tackle the whole entire project in a time frame that makes sense. Like, map it out so okay, so today I need to do X, Y, Z. Tomorrow I'm going to do these 3 things. Then next week I'm going to do these 3 things. And then all of a sudden, all those little steps take you to that big giant elephant. And now you can eat them.
Exactly.
Bite-sized nibbles.
I really, really, really like the way that you lay that out. And it's so true. And it's like, okay, maybe on Monday you take a small, tiny, tiny little step. Tuesday, you take a giant leap towards whatever it is. Wednesday, you don't do anything at all. Or maybe, Thursday, you take, again, a bigger leap. And, every next step, every next milestone is I don't want to phrase this, like, every next milestone that you have, or any next thing that you're working towards, just like you're saying, you have to create that path for it. You don't get from, and this is some of the thing that I see, like, online. I know that it's marketing, I know it's a tactic, but 0 to 10K in 1 month. No, you didn't talk about the struggle that you face in that 0. You know what I mean? Like, okay, sure, some people can absolutely do that, but a lot of the time, and I'm sure you see this in your business a lot too, people need help with the things that hold them back. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's, like, your mindset is your biggest block towards anything that you want to achieve. And so regardless if it's a big goal or small goal that you're working on, you just take that little or big step.
Yeah. No, and we overthink it so much because, we, like, people market. I love that you brought up, like, the 0 to 10K. And, like, I just made $0 to 10K in like 5 minutes, and you can do it too by downloading this free, $97 offer. And you're like, oh, perfect. Like, no.
I didn't. No, I'm just kidding. Oh,
like,
man.
And people are selling these like big dreams, like, oh, like you need to make 6 figures or 7 figures in your business. And like, you're not successful if you don't make 6 or 7 figures in your business. And that's not true. Like it's each of us have a different goal, and our goal might not be making 7 figures in our business. Like, is 7 figures nice? Absolutely.
Sure.
Like, great to have that extra income because you could give back in this big way and you could do more things. And you could, you know, look at things differently, but that's not most of our goals. Most of our goals are to figure out like what do we financially need to make to support our family and have the freedom to do the things that we want to do. Like my goal was flexibility. Like my entire goal is to be able to be home with my kids and tuck them in bed at night, because in my past life, that wasn't my reality. Like I missed a lot of time because I was working crazy, insane hours and I was gone all the time.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I want to make money because we need money to do the things that we're doing in life, but it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to sell this like 7-figure business, and you don't have to be making 7 figures in your business. If that's your goal, awesome. Like,
yeah,
means like, go get it. Like if you want 7 figures and that's like what you're shooting for, do it. But if that's not your goal and your goal is to make $2,500 or $3,000 or $5,000, like whatever that goal is for you, shoot for that. You don't have to do what everybody else is like selling you online. It doesn't have
That's so true. And it comes back to like the alignment with yourself, you know what I mean? Instead of listening to what external people are saying that you should do or should be or should have, it's what do you want? What do you want to be? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to impact people? That's that's at the you know, at the core of it. And I think, in the past and even now, like we've talked a little bit about what success looks like, and it looks different for everybody. You know what I mean? Like your version of success is different than mine, and mine is different than my fiance's. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone's is different.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
I'm curious, what are some ways that have worked for you and your business for creating success? Like, is there any like tangible tips you can share or things, and knowing that this might not work for others, but I know a lot of our audience loves to hear stories and loves to see like what other people are doing so they can self-reflect and see if it will work for them and their businesses.
I love that.
So what's like one tip that you could share that's helped you create some of the success you have today?
For sure. Okay. So, I have a couple. The first one, and I was talking about it earlier, but the first one is really connecting to yourself. Connect to yourself and see what it is you want to do. That from there drives everything else that you do. And something that's been so important for me has been selling is a really interesting thing. And a lot of the time people will equate like success with the financial number that comes in. A thing that's been really, really good and really, really helpful in my business to create success is to build relationships. I spend a lot of my time, like I hang out a lot on Instagram. So that's more of, where I am on a daily basis, but I find new people through different hashtags. I connect with, new people and, invite them into my community on Facebook through the DMs. But I always make sure to be building that relationship. And so it's not like that cold sell that's like, hi, I'm Simona. I'm an intuitive business and mindset coach. And I could help you, connect to your voice and, step into your magic so that you can have an amazing business. That's pretty much saying that like, I already think that you don't have an amazing business. Do you know what I mean? Like you would never say that. You would go in instead and be like, oh my God, I love that picture of that dog that you posted and that analogy that you did on this, how are you doing? Like, it's so nice to be connected with you. So I think that at the base of it all, it's building that relationship and really putting forward like that care, that genuine care for somebody else. You don't need to talk to everybody. You don't need to be friends with everybody, but there are people that you're going to see, you're going to come across you, they're going to resonate so hard to you. And you're going to be like, oh my God, I love what this person is doing. So it's like taking that ego aside, put it to the side, and what genuine relationship can you build with someone? Because you never know how something can grow, even the way that you and I met. So random. And you came onto my podcast and look where we are.
Yeah. Now we're best friends.
Yeah, exactly. Best friends, different countries.
Yep.
Same storm. Different ship.
Different boats.
I don't know if that was helpful, if that's like a tangible enough tip.
Yeah, that's great, because I teach the same thing with my clients too, like just being of service and showing up and building relationships. Like you can't, like, you don't just know you're going to marry somebody, right? Like you don't meet somebody immediately and say, oh, there's my spouse and we're going to get married and be happy forever.
To me.
And it's the same thing with a client. You don't just like walk up to your client and say, hey, I'm going to be your coach.
Like,
surprise.
no.
Like,
oh my gosh. And it's funny that you say that.
I'm big on like the know, like, trust factor. You have to get to know and like people and trust them. And then after you've built all of that, then you can start to let people know, well, hey, this is what I do and this is how I can help. And I see that you're struggling with this thing, whatever that is. And then come in and show, like, this is how I help my clients by doing X, Y, Z. Exactly. Not by like doing the used car salesman approach where we're just dropping into the DMs and trying to sell immediately.
Exactly. And I've seen so many different things that, like, you know, people will use to sell, and different techniques and tactics to sell. And I mean, I've seen, like, I have friends who've done coaching programs, and, you know, they're promised a coaching program of being coached by one person specifically. And then you get there and you realize you're being coached by someone completely different that just works underneath that person, which is a business model and it's the way that it works. But, you know, I think that you can't put a price on how someone feels after they interact with you and interact with your product, service, or business overall. I mean, as a, you know, a service-based business, your own self, you have personal brand, but then you have your brand, but personal brand always feeds into your brand, right? Yeah. And that's what people are going to remember. And I know you talk about this as well. So, yeah. So I think that it's important to remember that, right? Like, how do you want to make people feel after they've interacted with you? Do you want, like, after I speak with someone, for example, I hope that they feel energized and excited and, you know, a little more full of life, you know what I mean? But everyone has something different. So
and we can bring so much to that relationship too. Like, we don't have to just be like, I don't have to be just a business coach. I'm not just a business coach. Like, there's so many different facets to me and things that I love talking about. And that's why, like, you can share, you know, different pieces of your life to build that relationship. Like, if I just talked all day long only about like work stuff, like, how boring would that be? Like, people want to know, like
who's Darlene?
I put my kids into my stories, like, I get a ton of engagement. A lot of my clients are moms, or and they're like, oh, my kid does that too, or like they can envision like themselves in like the stories that I'm sharing, because they're like, oh yeah, like the darndest things kids do, like that happens to me too.
I love that. And you remind me of something that you were saying on my podcast, that you like jot down the little stories and the things that happen so that you can like remember them for later. I love that so much. And I started doing that after we spoke. And it's funny how many things like you kind of forget that happen in your life that are so relatable to everybody else. And, you know, being able to share them. I loved that tip that you left on my show. Yeah. It was really good.
The story banks. I was telling on Simona's podcast that I have a Trello account, and I just have a board. Like, anytime I have like a little story where I'm not sure how it will equate quite yet into my business, or maybe it's not the right time to share that story yet, but I jot them down because my memory is like a sponge. Like, once it goes in, I don't know that it necessarily comes back out. Like, so I write it down, and then later on, if I have like a message I'm trying to share about something specific in my business, I can have a story to attach to it so that people can connect to it better. They can relate to it more. Yeah. So yeah.
I love that. I love that.
It was glad that you took that tip and you're using it, because it's made a huge difference. Like, when I realized that I needed to like start writing them down, I was like, this is so good, because now I can go back and I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this with my audience. And then I'm like, oh, this story actually works perfect. And I can like share this story and lead it into whatever it is I want to talk about with my business. And then it makes it so much more relatable. People are like, oh, it's like that mirroring effect, right? Like, they see themselves inside the stories that we share. Exactly. And it's so impactful to use storytelling when it comes to growing our audience, because people, like, we connect through story. People love story. I love stories. Like, I'll listen to stories all day. You put me around a campfire and want us like talk stories, like, I'm super happy. Like, that's my spot. Like,
exactly. Like, sign me up.
exactly why I started this podcast too. Like, I love hearing the stories of all the entrepreneurs that I interview, because it just gives me a chance to like learn more about them and like get inside like what makes them tick, what were they thinking, like and there's so much that connects. Like, I feel like everybody's story is different.
Yeah.
But there's so many connecting moments in those stories that bring people together. They're like, oh, like I was feeling that same way. Like, we got there maybe in a totally different way, but we still got there together.
Exactly. I love that so much. That is so important. And you know, it's funny because it's like people can, especially in business, I think, you know, I have a really hard time personally with labels. Like when I think of like, under the umbrella of business coaching, you have 5,500 different types of business coaches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that anything to do with business, you're right. It's story, it's relationships. And after those two, and it's connecting to yourself. And then after you have those three things, your funnels will always figure itself out. You'll figure out how to create that email list, that freebie, and all those different things. And it all is connected, but you have to sort of start at the core, like from the inside out.
Yeah. That's the first place I have my clients work, is like when we're getting, we work on their personal brand foundation. So we look at what their stories are, what pieces of their life can they connect with their audience, who's their ideal client. And before we even get into like who their ideal client is, it's like, well, who do you want to serve? Like, what life do you have? Because if you don't start with you, you're going to create a business that doesn't feel good, that doesn't excite you, that doesn't make you get out of bed in the morning. And then all of a sudden you hate your job, which is your business that you created. Like, it's not like a corporate job where like you can like leave it. I mean, you can, but like it's your baby to a degree.
Exactly.
You're nurturing and creating this business, and you want it to be focused around you and what you want to serve, who you want to serve, and how you want to show up. So if you don't do that with you in mind, you're just going to create another job that you don't like going to. So
exactly,
determine what you want to do, how you want to show up, who you want to serve. And then you figure out the ideal client work, and you figure out like what your messaging is going to be and put it out to the world that way.
I love that so much. That is such a really good point, especially what you're saying about, you know, otherwise you just create like another corporate job that you really don't like. You know what I mean? So like, what was the purpose of going out? And, you know, and I think it's all about like trying. If it doesn't align, that's fine. Pivot, try again. Turn inwards, pivot, try again. And I think that this is the thing that people often can get stuck on, that if it changes, it's like, oh my God, am I changing my mind again? It's not that you're changing your mind again. It's that you have expanded and you have grown. And so now you're diving into something new and something different. You know what I mean? And that's okay. And to continue to grow was a big limiting belief that I had to let go for my own self, because for a long time I was like, oh my God, I can't change. I can't, you know, pivot again. I've already done this like twice in the last year, but that's fine. It has to grow that way.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't see where we're going to end up when we're so focused on trying to control how it's going to happen. So letting go of some of that control and just, you know, knowing that you in yourself have the answers that you need to be able to figure out what your next step is so, so, so important.
Yeah. And we learn so much through that process, right? Like every time that you pivot, like you get to take everything you've learned in that last business, or what, not necessarily even like, it's not like it's a new business, but like maybe the ideal client that you were serving, or how you were speaking, or who you were serving at that time. Like you get to take all that information and all of the training and the things that you've learned and whatnot, and bring that to the new business. And it makes it that much easier to move forward. It's not like you're like completely overhauling and changing everything and you have to start from scratch again. Like,
exactly. And it just goes back to that point that, you know, people who have all of those crazy sales, crazy months, crazy this, crazy that, there is a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes that people don't always talk about. So you can't ever compare your day 1 to somebody else's, or your day 20 or 30 to somebody else's year 10. You can't. Yeah. It's completely different places.
Yeah. Such a good point, because we try so hard. We're like, but they're doing so many amazing things and I need to do them. And you're like, I'm on, you know, year 2 of business. And like you said, they could be like year 10 or 12. And all of a sudden you're like, I can't keep up.
Exactly.
They've had so many failures and successes and like things that have happened and like pivots, and they've done all the things to get their business where they need it today.
Exactly.
And you're going to get there on your terms, in your way, the way that only you can do it. Like you can't do it like somebody else does it, because you're not them, they're not you. Like do it your way.
Exactly. Plus, I think we often forget that like a lot of the time people have huge teams behind them, right? And so, I think if you want your business to grow in that way and you want it to be big in that way, there's always value in having someone even, help you out, or, getting a VA or outsourcing tasks, because it frees up space for other things to come in. But, like even my coach, for example, she has a team behind her. You know what I mean? Of course she's operating on the caliber that she is, because she has the support where she needs it. Right. And so, especially when you're in year, 1 to 3, maybe like 1 to 2, you're doing a lot of it on your own, So yeah, again, you can't, exactly what you're saying. Like you can't compare where you're at with somebody else. And it goes back to like your own personal journey and your own story. Like, what do you want for your life? So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This has been so fun. Before we kind of wrap things up, I have a couple questions that I like to ask all my guests.
Ooh.
Some like rapid fire questions.
I'm excited. Let me readjust the headphones. I'm ready.
So I'm curious if you have a morning routine, and if so, what is it?
Yes. Okay. So I tried to structure for so long my morning routine. I don't structure it anymore, but what I do is I make sure that I have an hour dedicated to myself. And in that hour, I do whatever it is that I'm feeling called and aligned to doing. So it pretty much always includes some kind of meditation. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's journaling. But I can't start my day unless I have that 1 hour to myself first. So
I love that. Yeah. Thanks. And it's so important that we take time just for us. The oxygen mask needs to go on us before it goes to anybody else, so that we can show up and be our best self.
Exactly.
And then, who has made the biggest impact in your life? Like, has there been like a big influencer or a mentor in your life that like you are so thankful for?
Yeah, I have, that's a really good question. The first person that comes to my mind is my fiance. He's the one who sort of helped me wake up to the fact that we don't need to live a life, like that I didn't need to live a life of being unhappy, and has always been the biggest support in, helping me achieve and reach whatever it is I wanted. My podcast started because of him. He went out and bought me the mic. These are his headphones. You know what I mean? And so just having someone that's that supportive has been like a game changer. I don't think I ever would have started, because sometimes we need someone to believe in us that much that we can actually do it. In terms of like big, like life influencer, I have a few. I have Lewis House is a huge influencer for me, and Jay Shetty. I love them both. And they're not really business. They're more like entrepreneurial, like life influencer type. Yeah. But yeah, so that would be them.
I love that you mentioned your fiance. Usually I get like big like influencers, and then you shared your fiance, and my last guest just shared that it was her husband. And I love when we think about like the people that are in our day-to-day lives and how they make such a big impact on us. Like that's like, I think that's where like the true mentorship and like inspiration can come from. And like the big influencers, like we all have like our big influencers that we love, and like we love to follow and see what they're up to and like get away. But like knowing that it's like the people closest to us, like that's pretty awesome. So
it is. Even this interview today, I was running late because I went to go and pick up my wedding dress today, and I was running late, and so I called him. I said, "Can you please turn my computer on and sign in?" And I got here, and he had everything set up. I have like a light because it's really dark where I am. He turned the light on. He had everything set up, and I was like, "Oh my god, so nice."
It's so awesome to have like your biggest fan is like your closest person.
Yeah,
I love that. It sounds like you're marrying the right guy.
I think so. In 2021, because we've got to push it back, but that's okay.
Okay. Exactly. He's worth the wait.
Exactly.
And then where's your happy spot? Like when life feels crazy or you just need to like recharge and refresh, like where do you like to go or what do you like to do?
That is a great question. That's a really great question. I love going for walks. Those have kind of been like my saving grace, especially lately. I've started running again, so that has been amazing. But really, I like to curl up in my bed. I'll read a book. I'll watch a show. I love the blankets and feeling cozy. Like if I really need to like sort of like detach, I just go to my bed and not necessarily to sleep. It's like snuggly, you know?
It's like your warm and safe spot.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. My happy spot is the beach, and I think they're opening the beaches back up here in California. So I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks I can go put my toes in the sand.
Oh, that's going to be so nice.
Yeah.
You're not going to leave.
I could stay there all day. Absolutely.
Oh.
With a little umbrella drink.
Oh my gosh. Can I come meet you? I can start driving. I'll probably meet you there in time. No, I'm kidding.
Let's do it. All right. And my last question for you, and I know it's a little bit difficult because we can't actually do it today. But if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go right now?
Okay, great question. I think I would go to Croatia. Yeah, Croatia or Paris. But no, Croatia, it looks so beautiful. It looks so warm. It looks so like the beaches look amazing. I love like the European life, the European way of living, you know, all of it. And so I'd love to just submerge myself into that culture right now. It would be awesome.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. I'll join you there too. We'll go to the beach and then we'll go to Croatia.
Perfect. We'll just take a flight. I love it.
Simona, this has been so fun to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. Can you tell everybody where you love to hang out and spend most of your time so they can connect?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much, Darlene, for having me onto your show. This was so amazing. I'm like, honestly, more often than not behind on your side, because with my show as well. But anyways, you can find me on Instagram at simona.nicole. I also have a Facebook group. It's for heart-centered entrepreneurs. Everybody's welcome. It's called the Heart-Centered Entrepreneur Society. And yeah, my podcast is Happiness Happens. So anywhere on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube. So
awesome. And then what's your website if people want to find you? And do you have a free gift or anything?
So I do. I have a couple of freebies on my website. One of them is a content calendar. I'm creating a lot more to do with the communication realm and world. So keep an eye out for that. But my website is simonanicole.com, and from there you can go and check out courses, one-on-one coaching, any type of coaching, whatever you want to do. Have a conversation, say hello, get a link to my podcast, my blog, shop, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Simona, for coming on. It's been so fun talking to you.
Thank you.